Sonic Generations. I've had the idea to tackle this game quite a few times, but up until now there were other games I wanted to cover first, like Colors or Black Knight. It seems only logical that I talk about Generations at this point. I made an admittedly now dated but still valid video on Unleashed, then a video on the game's next real successor Colors, so now it seems fair to go to Generations, the game that carried on from Colors. Weirdly, I've always kinda considered Unleashed, Colors and Generations as a sort of unofficial trilogy in my head. I'm not really sure why. None of the games have a shared plot, and it's not even like they're all consistent in tone. Unleashed is way darker and deeper than Colors and Generations. I guess it's just kind of like the initial trilogy of 3D boost games. Unleashed came out and brought us the boost formula, Colors translated it to the Wii, and now Generations tries to perfect the boost back on the more powerful PS3 and Xbox 360. Now obviously these aren't the only 3 boost games, we also have Sonic Forces, but after Generations we got Lost Worlds and then Boom, and besides these are the only good boost games in my opinion. So yeah, Sonic Unleashed created a brand new 3D style for Sonic and people seem to actually like it. The feedback was lose the werehog and give us more day stages, so Sonic Team did that with their follow-up title Sonic Colors on the Wii, and critical reception was even better. The game did extremely well both critically and in terms of sales. So in 2011 it was Sonic's 20th anniversary. People were hyped for the next Sonic game. The last game Colors was a hit with both fans and critics, and Sonic Team could now clearly see that the boost formula was a serious thing people were into. All the makings for a great title were there, but could Sonic Team pull it off? Could they make a game worthy of Sonic's 20th anniversary? That's what I aim to find out in this video. Sonic Generations is the first Sonic game I actively remember coming out, if that makes sense. All the Sonic games I'd played up until that point, like Unleashed, Black Knight, 06, Secret Rings and the Rush games, were either given to me as a gift or I went somewhere like Blockbuster Video and physically picked the game off a shelf. I had never followed a Sonic game coming out, they were always just there. But Generations was the first one I remember being talked about in the lead up to its release. I remember the Generations demo releasing on PlayStation Network back in 2011 before the game had released, and downloading it. The demo featured both classic Sonics and modern Sonic's Green Hill Zone level. I played that demo to absolute death on my PS3, mainly modern Sonic's level but classic Sonic's as well to a lesser extent. I truly was so hyped for this game. From the demo alone I just had such a good feeling about Generations. I could feel it was going to be good. Modern Sonic felt tight, the game looked bright and vibrant, and classic Sonic. After Sonic 4, Generations Classic Sonic was light years ahead of anything we had seen for a long time. I know it's hard to imagine now as Classic Sonic is in everything, but back in 2011, to see the old classic design come back after all those years and have the classic 2D gameplay alongside the new modern boost formula was so fucking cool. When the game released I bought the collector's edition, and actually still have my original collector's edition statue with me, which is a great statue. Both modern and classic Sonic are modelled really well, and on a whole it just looks really nice. I bought the game for PlayStation 3 and played through the game loving every bit of it. Even after completion I would frequently come back to Generations along with Unleashed to play through the boost levels, learning the stages and getting the best times I possibly could. But 2011 was a long time ago. In fact, it was 10 years ago. Jesus Christ, it was 10 years ago. Is Generations truly as good as I remember it, or was I just swept up in the hype of Sonic's 20th birthday? Well, there's only one way to find out. Before we get started, I think it's worth noting now that the version of the game I'm playing is the PC version on Steam. Main reason being mod support, which I'll talk about in its own section later in this video, but regardless, the PC version of Generations is definitely the best version to go for. The textures are much cleaner and a higher resolution, loading times are practically non-existent, full 1080p screen resolution, and the game can be locked at 60 FPS with no dips assuming your hardware can handle it. On console, while the game still looks okay, it's definitely starting to show its age. Generations reuses the Hedgehog engine from Unleashed, but Sonic Team actually toned the graphics down for Generations to achieve a more stable frame rate, so Unleashed actually looks better. The console version's graphics definitely aren't as sharp, but it's still a pretty good looking game. The main issue is the 30 FPS lock, and the game can dip quite commonly in intense sections. Loading times are also a fair bit longer. If you're looking to play Generations and don't have a PC that can handle it, or would just rather have the game on console, the console port is definitely still a fine way to enjoy the game. It's still very much the same game I'm talking about in this video. The PC version just has small improvements like sharper visuals, faster loading times, and 60 FPS gameplay. So I would say if you can, go for the PC version, but if not, either the PS3 or 360 version will definitely suffice. The game doesn't suffer from frame rate issues anywhere near as much as Unleashed, and while loading times are longer than PC, they're not particularly long. and you're still into the action fairly quickly. Before we get into things as well, I'm just clearing up now that today I am talking about the main console version of Sonic Generations only, not the 3DS version. I do own the 3DS version and have for years. I've finished it multiple times and do have a lot of stuff to say on it, but I'd rather give that game its own video than cram it into this one and half-ass it. I'll definitely get to that game at some point, but right now we're talking about the version of Sonic Generations that released on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and PC. Okay, let's get into it.
Hey guys, what's going on? You having a party or something? Surprise!
So let's start off with the story. This is, in my opinion, by far the weakest aspect of Sonic Generations. Now, Generations features the same writers that were introduced in Sonic Colors, and while I will defend Sonic Colors' story and say it really isn't as bad as people make it out to be, I honestly cannot defend Sonic Generations' story. So the game starts off with nothing. We're thrown into Act 1 Green Hill as classic Sonic and just get on with it. There's no cutscene or anything. You just hit new game, the level loads, and we're in Green Hill. I actually do like that Gens did this. It's hard to feel like this nowadays because classic Sonic is literally in everything, but in 2011 there was serious hype about the return of classic Sonic, and it's like the game knew this, instantly throwing us into classic Sonic gameplay as if to say, here, just take him for a spin, we know you're dying to. After finishing the act, that's when we actually get a cutscene. We see classic Sonic running along man in his own business, and then out of nowhere this huge and mysterious figure appears and the screen fades to white. Alright, I'll give the story this at least. That cutscene is pretty impactful. Obviously it isn't now because everyone knows it's a time eater, but back in 2011 on a first playthrough, it was pretty intriguing. We then cut to modern Sonic's friends hosting a birthday party for Sonic. Okay, so hold up, if they're hosting a birthday party for Sonic, then how old is he? Is he 20 like the anniversary at the time of the game's release, or is he now 16 as his canon age is 15, or did he become 15? But if he's having a birthday party, then I guess that would make him 16 now. I think I'm looking too much into this. Anyway, things are going well and the whole gang's here. Tails, Knuckles, Amy, the Chaotix, Blaze, Rouge and Cream. Then literally out of fucking nowhere, the Time Eater appears and does this. We then wake up in a white void that looks extremely similar to Mario Kart Wii's title screen.
Where am I?
Come on! Oh yeah! Hey! Hey!
And we spot a colourless and drained Green Hill. That is the intro to this game, and it's not great. Things just happen out of nowhere, and no real build up or tension is created. One minute we're having lunch, and the next minute the whole of time seems to have been wiped out. The Time Eater's design is very menacing, and there was potential there to have a daunting villain, but the intro is so quick, we don't even really have time to be intimidated by him. He just shows up, sucks all of Sonic's friends up, turns everything white, and then dips. Even Sonic doesn't have time to say much, literally saying,
Hey! Not cool!
And then getting bitch slapped. The only real thing I can give this intro is I like how the game starts with a classic Sonic level instantly, and after completing the act we get a cutscene where the Time Eater ambushes classic Sonic and then things fade to white, leaving a bit of suspense as we don't know what happened to classic Sonic. And I suppose I can say at least the intro is short, so it gets you into the great gameplay quicker, but I mean, Sonic games can still have short intros that still have impact and invest the player into the story. SA2 is a prime example. Anyway, we finish Green Hill Zone and then save Tails, who was frozen in time with Green Hill. I think now is a good time to talk about Generations voice cast. On a whole, it's okay. No, it's pretty good. I'm just salty that we don't have Jason Griffith anymore. Roger Craig Smith as Sonic is pretty good. I would say Generations is probably some of his best work as well. The rest of the cast are great and I have no complaints really except for Shadow. Kirk Thompson just sounded a bit off in Generations. I will give it to the guy that he does improve in future games, but I would still take either Jason Griffith or David Humphrey over him any day. I also think Silver was better in 06. I actually think Silver's best voice was the one from 06, but Generations Silver is okay. And the last person I don't really like is Amy. I just don't really like the way Cindy Robinson makes the character sound. I much preferred Lisa Ortiz for Amy Rose. I think that was the character's best voice. Aside from those three though, I'm quite happy with the voice acting in Generations. Kate Higgins does a great performance for both Tails and Classic Tails, and voices for Knuckles, Espio, Vector, Blaze, Rouge, Cream, and even Charmy are all great. Anyway, after completing Green Hill and talking to Tails, Sonic says,
Is it me? Or is that place we were just in awfully familiar?
Which always confused me because, I mean, would Sonic not just recognise Green Hill Zone? I mean, nowadays he's there all the time and it's presented to us like a place that Sonic and his friends just go to all the time. So I would have presumed Sonic would be like, hey, it's Green Hill, instead of this place is familiar, but Hey, let's go with it. Tails explains he doesn't recognise the place and tells Sonic to check out something he saw in the distance, which happens to be Chemical Plant. Now one thing I will give the story for Generations, while the plot is very simple and really has no real impact on the player, the whole game is packed full of references to past games, even in the cutscenes. It's a nice way to pay homage to Sonic's history and celebrate his legacy, so I will at least give the story credit in that aspect. Modern Sonic runs off to Chemical Plant and is shortly followed by Classic Sonic, who Tails doesn't clock on is a different Sonic in an admittedly quite cute cutscene.
Wow, you weren't kidding when you said soon. I thought you already left.
And from that, the already minuscule plot takes a back seat. With each location you unlock and complete, you rescue one of your friends, like Amy for Chemical Plants and Knuckles for Sky Sanctuary. They spout some random dialogue to you about how they're scared or how thankful they are for you rescuing them, and then it's on to the next level. The next real cutscene we get is after we unlock the first boss, the Death Egg. And okay, damn it, the ongoing gag of the two Sonics not realising they're different people is quite funny. Anyway, the two Sonics are unaware of each other until Eggman beckons them from a distance and Classic Sonic runs off, making Modern Sonic realise that there is another Sonic. They both run towards the white light where Eggman appears to be, but only Classic Sonic makes it and a familiar fight with the Death Egg occurs. After defeating the Death Egg, out of nowhere the Time Eater appears and kidnaps Eggman. In this scene we see Eggman scream for help as he's dragged away, which, alright, I will give this to the story as well. This scene does add a bit of mystery and suspense to the plot, as things look like the Time Eater is a separate villain and isn't on Eggman's side. Anyway, after that the two Sonics properly meet along with both Classic and Modern Tails. The two Tails tell us what they think is happening.
I think I figured it out. Yeah, me too. Doubles of us? Places and enemies from our past? We're traveling through time and space!
No shit.
So the story's set. The two Sonics need to run through their past to catch up to the Time Eater in the present. Again, the next few cutscenes aren't really important, it's just the character coming back after finishing an area, they spout some random dialogue, and then we move on. The next real cutscene that progresses the story occurs after Sonic takes on Perfect Chaos. After the fight, the four talk about how things are going well and how the two Sonics have brought back quite a lot of the world, and then out of nowhere the Time Eater appears again, opening up the final levels of the game. As he's flying around, he hits a Chaos Emerald which hurts him. He then flies off. Tails deducts that the monster doesn't like the Chaos Emerald and that we need all 7 to defeat him. Not like that's what we do for every single villain ever, but okay. So then the plot basically just stops trying at all, up until the final boss. We complete the last 3 stages, complete the last boss gate and get the Chaos Emeralds. Now the way the Chaos Emeralds are obtained in Generations is kind of random. 4 of them you just get from defeating the normal bosses, but 3 of them you get from fights you have to find in the hub world. These fights are with foes from Sonic's past, namely Metal Sonic, Shadow and Silver. I'm going to presume that the versions of these characters we fight are the past versions that still are Sonic's enemy, as in the final section of the game and the ending, both Silver and Shadow are there and support Sonic as if they hadn't just tried to kill him, so yeah, gonna presume these are the past versions of the characters here. Anyway, I'll talk about these fights in the story section of the video, but there literally is no story there at all. You'll just find them in the hub world and go, no cutscene or anything, so there's nothing really for me to say. I have a lot to say about the actual gameplay of the fights, but in terms of story, there's nothing really for me to say. So the last boss gate is the Egg Dragoon from Sonic Unleashed. After the fight occurs, Eggman angrily shouts about how he was meant to beat Sonic this time, and then again out of fucking nowhere the Time Eater appears and takes Modern Eggman. Now there is more to talk about with the story, but everything from here on out is all part of the ending of the game, so despite the fact this game's story is incredibly weak, I'm a sucker for consistency, so I'm gonna end things here and talk about the ending of the story in my ending section of this video. General consensus though is the story is bare bones and just feels like a bad excuse for two Sonics to run through iconic levels. Now it's time to talk about by far the best aspect of this game, and arguably the most important aspect of any game, the gameplay. Sonic Generations provides you with 2 gameplay styles. Firstly, you have classic 2D Sonic gameplay similar to the classic Sonic games, and the second gameplay style is modern Sonic, controlling similar to how we did in Sonic Unleashed. I'll start with classic Sonic. So controls. In terms of abilities, he's the exact same as the Mega Drive games. Run, jump, roll and spin dash. In terms of actual feel, he doesn't exactly feel like he does in the Genesis games. games. He feels similar, you can still tell, yes, this is 2D classic Sonic gameplay, and you can see clear similarities between the original Mega Drive games and how he plays now, but he definitely has his own unique feel. If you start comparing him pixel to pixel against classic Sonic games, there are fairly large differences in how he feels, but that doesn't make the gameplay style bad. While it is slightly different, it's still in my opinion classic 2D Sonic gameplay that is reminiscent of the original games. Sonic is now faster and his momentum feels a bit different, but it's still clearly there and plays an important role just like the Mega Drive games, but I would say it's not quite as important as those original games. This is due to the spin dash. To trigger the spin dash in the original games, you would have to stop, crouch down and press the jump button, spamming it repeatedly if you want to charge up your spin dash. In Generations, while you can still do this if you so choose, the spin dash has also been mapped to the X button. This makes the spin dash way easier to execute. You can be running at top speed and instantly pressing the X button for a quick spin dash to propel you forward. You can even trigger the spin dash on vertical slopes and even inside loops. It can essentially be activated anywhere, anytime. The spin dash is also guilty of being extremely overpowered. It is strong, like really strong. If you charge it up, it sends you off at a ridiculously fast speed. Because of the spin dash being so fast and so easy to execute, that's why the momentum based aspect of classic Sonic gameplay is undervalued and isn't as prevalent in Generations. Why would the player focus their efforts on using the environment's momentum to gain speed if they can just hit the X button at any time and blast from 0 to 100 in a second? Now again, this isn't necessarily bad, it's just different. I've heard some people say it is bad because it's not like the original 2D games, but personally for me, I just see it as a different take on classic Sonic gameplay. Classic Sonic really has never been this fast. While the spin dash eliminates any real need to use the environment to gain speed, there is still the need to use the environment to keep your speed. To keep your speed, you need to be fast with your reflexes to take the right paths and make the right jumps so you aren't slowed down or outright stopped in your tracks. This was a fundamental mechanic of the original 2D games, and I'm glad to say Generations Classic Sonic still keeps it. While he's different, Classic Sonic in Generations is still very fun to control. He's snappy, responsive, and everything does feel tight. His momentum isn't quite as you remember it, but it's still definitely there, unlike Sonic 4, which was practically unrecognisable as a 2D Sonic game. And while the overpowered and easily utilised spin dash does make the gameplay style feel different from the classic 2D games, it's fun in its own right, and provides a very fast-paced and thrilling gameplay style. The level design of Classic Sonic is also top-notch. It feels very similar to how they did in the original games, but with slight changes to work for the faster Classic Sonic. There are always varied paths to take, a range of enemies, power-ups placed in interesting locations, and just the right amount of springs, loops, and boost pads. All the makings of great Classic Sonic stages are here, but what truly makes these stages exceptional for me is the theming. To run through iconic stages remade with new stunning HD graphics is just as phenomenal now as it was in 2011. Well, okay, maybe Green Hill Zone has lost its wow factor a bit, but everything else is fine. The classic stages like Chemical Plant and Sky Sanctuary are great, but for me, the most interesting ones are the Dreamcast and modern era levels. To see classic Sonic run through stages like Speed Highway, City Escape, Crisis City and Rooftop Run, it's incredible. All of the stages are just made so well, with the perfect amount of 3D depth, having things constantly going on in the background and the camera frequently flipping for a more 2.5D look to be more cinematic. What I really love is how the stages still manage to carry over the iconic set pieces from the original 3D levels, like the truck chase in City Escape, the tornado in Crisis City, and the clock tower in Rooftop Run. The levels are an absolute blast to run through. It's just a shame there's not many of them. There are also the boss fights. So excluding the final boss, Classic Sonic has two boss fights, one with Metal Sonic and one with the Death Egg. Both are pretty good. The Death Egg is great. It starts off with a traditional fight akin to the Sonic 2 one, but soon flips to a new layout where you have to stun the Death Egg by having it hit bombs placed around platforms. It's an interesting and unexpected change that I welcomed. The Metal Sonic fight is pretty good too. It's still great to see an iconic fight revamped with new modern graphics, but the fight is a bit easy, mainly due to the spin dash, as Sonic can so easily now catch up to Metal, but on a whole it's still a fun fight. And then there is Modern Sonic. While classic Sonic gameplay follows on from the formula set out by the classic games, Modern Sonic's gameplay is a continuation of the boost style that was started in Sonic Unleashed. This was the third time Sonic Team had used the boost formula, however Unleashed follow-up game Colors didn't really give Sonic Team the chance to refine and perfect the boost formula, as they were dropping from the 360 and PS3 to the Nintendo Wii, which couldn't even handle the Hedgehog engine that the whole boost formula was based off. So with Colors, it was much more about porting the boost formula down to a lesser engine and scaling back the gameplay style to fit fit on the Wii, while still trying to keep as much of what made it great in Unleashed present. But with Generations, Sonic Team were returning to the more powerful hardware of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, so they had an actual chance to try and make the boost gameplay the best it can be. Okay, so let's start off with the controls. So I'm happy to say Sonic Team have fixed a lot of things that bugged me in Unleashed day stages. Firstly, it seems simple, but they've changed the homing attack back to the jump button like it has always been. I still to this day never understand why Sonic Team went with mapping the homing attack to the boost button. No other Sonic game had ever done that, and it just made no sense since it rendered the air dash useless, as if you had even a tiny bit of boost in the boost gauge, then you would just air boost forward, which was very frustrating. It creates a serious problem for Sonic fans like me who regularly go back and play Unleashed along with other games like the Sonic Adventures, 06, and especially Generations, because muscle memory just tells me to hit the jump button again for a homing attack, and it's a hard thing to get used to when going between the games. Another great change from Unleashed is the drift. In Sonic Unleashed, the drift was pretty broken. While if you're not boosting and time things just right, it could be used to make corners, while boosting the thing did not work at all. It was way too wide and you would never ever make the turn. Even without boosting, there's still many a time in the game where you would just not make a turn because the drift is too fucking wide. In Sonic Generations, the drift is near perfect. It works great both with and without boost. It actually is a viable option now and is tight enough that it can actually be used to make turns quickly. The quick step feels about the same as it did in Sonic Unleashed, but there was never really any issue with it in Unleashed in the first place. And the light speed dash feels very similar to Unleashed as well, which is still pretty hit or miss. See, since I played both Generations and Unleashed so much, my brain has adjusted to the very specific timing required for the light speed dash, so I hardly ever miss, but I've seen a lot of people who don't play the game consistently really struggle with the light speed dash. I don't know what it is with the boost games, but the light speed dash has never been great. It's always very finicky in the angle you can come into the Trail of Rings. Why Sonic Team can't just have the light speed dash accuracy like P06, a fan game, I will never understand. It surely can't be a hard thing to do, but the boost games always seem to struggle with timing. Don't get me wrong, it's not broken and it does work for the most part, it's just definitely not anything to write home about. I would actually say that the light speed in Sonic Generations is ever so slightly worse than Unleashed. I seem to miss more ring trails, and Sonic Team also changed the way it works randomly. It used to be in Unleashed that the light speed dash worked on any trail of rings present in the stage, whether it was put there as a ring trail for the light speed dash or not. In Generations, they changed it where the light speed dash only works on a specific trail of rings the developers have marked is for lightspeed dashing on through having them light up. I really don't understand why. It seemed like a pointless change and slightly limits the possibilities of the lightspeed dash. Don't get me wrong, you could never do much else with it in Unleashed, but it seemed like an unnecessary simplification. I don't know, this is a minor complaint, maybe I'm just nitpicking. It really is nothing compared to the fucking simplifications we would see in future games, Jesus. Anyway, all of Sonic's other moves like the stomp, grind, wall jump, slide and quick jump are all here and work just like you remember them in Unleashed, although swapping ground rails has now been swapped to the left stick instead of the triggers. Everything feels great with Sonic, he's really snappy and responsive, except for his movement and jump. Now don't get me wrong here, I really am not hating on how Sonic feels to move and jump in Generations. On a whole, I still think he controls great and is definitely not bad to control. I still think he controls very good, but I do think he just controlled ever so slightly better in Unleashed. Now here I am only talking about in terms of movement and jump, everything else Generations definitely improves upon. I just think in Generations, Sonic feels a bit more heavy and sluggish to move around initially. Once he's boosting there's no real difference, but when it comes to precise movement and platforming, he just feels a bit more clunky and not as responsive. The same can be said for the jump, it feels a bit more heavy and sluggish. However, these complaints are minor, and on a whole, Generations having the much improved drift along with the traditional mapping of the homing attack makes me say that Generations has the overall superior control scheme for Boost Sonic, and to this day, in my opinion, is the best the Boost formula has controlled. One other thing that I love about Generations over Unleashed is that it just gives you all of Sonic's moves from the offset. There's no waiting to get to a certain world and then finding the stomp boots or anything like that. Sonic just has everything from the offset. Another great addition to the Boost gameplay style is the skills and skill sets. These are essentially perks for well, both classic and modern Sonic, but they're way more relevant to modern Sonic, so I'm going to talk about them here. With the points you rack up in the main game, you can head over to the skill shop to use your points to buy a variety of skills. Now, locking certain controls behind the skill shop is a dangerous game for Sonic in my opinion. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, there were so many skills to unlock in a skill shop, but that skill shop was never pushed to the player, and the skills were things that Sonic should have just had as the base Sonic in Secret Rings. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, there was so many skills to unlock in a skill shop, but that skill shop was never actually pushed to the player, and the skills were things that Sonic should have just had, as the base Sonic in Secret Rings just controls plain bad. People were playing a clunky, slow, sluggish and unresponsive Sonic, while skills that literally just made him control better were locked away in a skill shop. That is just bad game design. But in Sonic Generations, the skill shop is executed perfectly. All of these additions feel like just that, additions, they're bonuses. Without them, Sonic still feels great to play. The skill shop has things like increased speed, stop on a dime, better acceleration going up slopes, and blast off, which lets you get an early boost in a stage if you press the boost button right as the stage begins. There are a decent amount of skills to pick from, and then from there you can make your own skill set where you can add the skills that you've bought. Each skill is worth a certain amount of points, and you have a point limit, so you have to pick and choose which skills you as a player value, since you can't have all of them. This is awesome. It allows everyone to slightly customize how Sonic plays and fine tune him to suit how you play the game. It also adds loads of replayability. And yes, while I said before Sonic still controls great without all these skills, when he's played with them, it truly gives you some of the best boost controls you can ask for. Sonic feels extremely fast and tight. Sonic now also has a new, more intricate trick system. In Unleashed, Sonic would perform tricks off ramps if the player followed a quick time event, and in Colors, Sonic would perform tricks off ramps if the player mashed the A button. In Generations, the trick system was made more intricate. When going off a gold ramp, Sonic is able to perform tricks in the air. The player can choose what tricks for Sonic to do by pressing the left stick in any direction, allowing the player to have Sonic do different tricks in the air. As you're doing this, your boost gauge fills up slightly. However, if you finish your tricks by pressing the top triggers down at the same time, Sonic will do a finishing trick and perform the iconic SA1 pose. Along with this, it will greatly increase the amount of boost you earn from your tricks, and actually allows you to earn bonus boost that is added on above the boost gauge. Sonic Team doing this gave the trick system new life, and a new layer of intricacy and customizability, as the player can now choose what tricks Sonic does. Along with that, it gives the player more to do, as you really want to perform your finishing trick at the absolute last second to maximize the amount of boost earned. So modern Sonic controls great here. I really do think this is by far the best Sonic Team has ever had the boost formula. Now let's address the level design. So the level design of the stages and Generations is a bit different to Unleashed. With Unleashed, a lot of the time stages felt overall a lot more tighter. Things felt closely packed together. There were a fair few instances in the game where the levels open up a bit, and there are still plenty of different routes to take, but on a whole, level design in that game had a very tight feel to it in my opinion. With Generations, the stages appear to open up a bit more. The first stage, Green Hill Zone, is still probably the most linear stage in the game, but even from the offset, where you're still getting different paths to take, like the ground rails to jump on in the 2D section near the waterfall, and the breakable bridge near the final stretch of the level. It's a great first level to introduce or reintroduce you to the boost gameplay. It's pretty easy, but there is replayability there to come back, and a lot of subtle shortcuts you can take to improve your time. With Chemical Plant, we start to see Sonic Generations level design open up a lot more. This really is a great boost level. I love the attention to detail in the stage. Everything is filled with little diverging paths, like how if you home an attack at the very specific time here while heading for the grind rail, you'll grab onto the hook of the crane and bypass the grinding section. One thing I especially love is at the beginning of the stage. The alternating tube paths surrounding you are a great throwback to the original Sonic 2 Chemical Plant, but they're not just for decoration. You can actually jump off the main path and take them as shortcuts. A great early on diversion to stray away from the main path. Modern Sky Sanctuary is where I feel the level design gets its widest in the entire game. The level features wide long stretches of land to run through, and along with that it's filled to the brim with different paths, making replayability great. Every time I come back to this stage I take a different route. On top of this, Sky Sanctuary is where I feel the game ups the difficulty a bit. While Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant are pretty tame, especially Green Hill, Sky Sanctuary starts to actually throw some platforming challenges at you, and this is where the game properly starts to punish you if you are just mindlessly boosting forward. While you may not always die, if you're not on your toes and don't keep your reflexes up, you'll fall and go through the stage much slower and in a much less exhilarating way. None of the other stages ever get as wide as Sky Sanctuary, but they're all expertly made and have a consistent excellent quality to them. My personal highlights of the game are City Escape, which is full of such a bubbly energy, and the board section and truck section are expertly remade for the boost gameplay style. Everything feels so much faster and more extreme. Rooftop Run's level design is altered to have that more open Generations feel, but it still keeps a lot of the Unleashed traditions, like the wide drifts, emphasis of quick stepping, and the moving robots with lasers section. And then there's Speed Highway. This stage is glorious. SA1 is a great game, but even in 2011 it was dying for a remake. While Gen's Speed Highway is one of the more linear stages, it's expertly designed with many alternating paths, an emphasis on keeping a consistent high speed throughout, and level design that pushes you to use all of Sonic's skills. Generations just gives this stage new life and a new sense of spectacle that the original game, while in 1999 had, in more recent years has started to fade. Look at the police chase section, it's fucking glorious. Seaside Hill is another one that showcases Generations' more open level design, and it works perfectly. The stage feels so grand and vast, it's really thrilling to run through. On PC it is very pretty as well. Every stage in Generations is great in my opinion, with the exception of Planet Wisp. While Act 1 with Classic Sonic is pretty good, what the fuck happened here with Act 2? Planet Wisp is a really interesting theme, and the original stage in colours was fucking great, but here, god, it's just awful. The stage starts off promising but just quickly goes basically full-time 2D and has to play a jump around on slow moving platforms for ages, only to be taken to an excruciating section where you use the rocket wisp to make your way up a stage. It completely kills the pace and just fucking sucks. That aside though, the levels for Generations are overall great and have some of the most consistent quality within the whole series, excluding Planet Wisp. Another great aspect of Modern Sonic's gameplay is the boss fights. Again, here is where I think that Modern Sonic's boss fights are the best they've ever been. Unleashed was pretty good, Colors was just copy and paste 2D for the most part, and Forces was, well, are they even worth mentioning? But no, in Generations every boss fight is consistently great. So excluding the final boss fight, Sonic has 4 boss levels, unless we're including Vector. Are we? No. 2 are traditional fights found at the boss gates separating the 3 eras, Classic, Dreamcast and Boost. The first is Perfect Chaos, and it is perfect. I'm sorry. The boss is great. It utilises Boost Sonic's gameplay mechanic of running on water when boosting, and because of this it has the player constantly moving to stay afloat. In the second section, Chaos rises platforms up and the boss fight becomes a bit more slower and precise. It's a really fun fight and truly thrilling. The boost gameplay works perfectly to replace the Supersonic fight from the original game, where Sonic essentially had a boost anyway. The next fight is the Egg Dragoon boss fight from Unleashed, and this is one of my favourite boss fights in the whole Sonic series. It is very well made. In the original Unleashed, the Egg Dragoon was a pretty good fight, but here it's completely reworked for Boost Sonic and it is great, which creates a fast-paced fight filled with tension as it feels like you're constantly chasing Eggman. But the main aspect of the fight that makes it so great is the variety of attacks Eggman has. In 3D he'll use bombs, lasers, a drill, and in 2D he'll use his ice cannon and also try and crush you with platforms which you actually wall jump off to attack him, which is just fucking satisfying. Due to the varied ways Eggman will attack you, there's varied ways you can attack him back. There's the wall jumping in 2D, a homing attack in 2D, catching up to him in 3D and boosting into him, and taking a ramp up to the grind rails to get the drop on him and homing attack. The final section of the fight where he teleports you to a free fall down to the core of the earth with him is fucking epic and a great throwback to Unleashed. The spectacle is on another level, but Eggman is still trying to attack you, so you need to keep your reflexes up. The other 2 boss fights are character boss fights that you do to get an emerald. These are found above the levels in the hub worlds. There's 2 fights, Shadow and Silver. Both are very good and a great way to showcase how to do character fights with the boost gameplay. Shadow's fight is a remake of the SA2 fight and it's great. You both race each other to get orbs of energy. The person who fills up their energy meter gets a power up and uses it to attack. This is a pretty good boss fight. The energy is great and everything feels very fast. The theming is great as well and the gameplay is fun. However, it is a tad repetitive and a bit on the easy side for me personally. The Silver boss however is fucking incredible. Instead of remaking this shit show, Sonic Team completely reimagined the fight. This time it takes place in Crisis City and it is much better. Silver uses all of his powers to create a huge variety of attacks and there is actual challenge there. Sonic needs to be fast to dodge them. On top of that, the environment is filled with debris which Sonic needs to constantly dodge and evade to catch up to Silver. All of the ways you attack Silver are very satisfying, from using the homing attack on the object he's using psychokinesis on, to catching up to him when he's trying to ram you with a load of debris. They're all great, and the final section where Silver creates a huge ball of debris and hurls it at you is incredible and caught me off guard completely when playing the game originally in 2011. Homing attacking him and having him fall under the very thing he created to crush you is very satisfying. Now the Silver fight is a fair bit more challenging than the Shadow one, but overall both of these boss fights are pretty easy. However, lucky for me, after completing a boss in the game you unlock a hard mode for them, so they offer more of a challenge. No matter what boss I'm fighting, I always select hard mode as I feel it gives me a proper challenge and engages me more. Anyway, it's great that they did this, it makes the fights feel grander and more tense. Now the last section I need to talk about in terms of gameplay is the progression and hub world. So for context, Sonic Unleashed had many fully fleshed out 3D hub worlds to explore. The follow-up game Sonic Colors got rid of them entirely and replaced them with a traditional level select screen. Now Sonic Generations feels like kind of a middle ground between Colors and Unleashed. So the hub world in Gens is completely 2D and lacks any real character, it's just the white void, which to be fair I can't knock as the story is that Eggman is literally erasing time. Despite being 2D, there's still a few things to do. There's the skill shop where you can customize the aforementioned skill sets, there's the info post that can give info about the game, not something I'd ever really need, but hey, it's a nice inclusion. And then on the far left there's a room where you can listen to unlocked music tracks, view art, cutscenes and characters along with a short bio. This is a really nice touch. It adds character to the game and is a reward for fans of the franchise. However, aside from that, the hub world is a straight line starting with Green Hill Zone and ending with the final boss. However, above all the different zones there are tons of platforms filled with little gates. Each of these gates have specific challenges to complete related to the level they're above. For example, a time limit in Green Hill Zone. Now these challenges are actually linked to progression in the game. Sonic Generations is a great game, but it is fucking short, and if the game just allowed you to progress from level to level, then you could honestly finish the game in about an hour. So to pad things out a bit and ensure that the game doesn't feel too short, these challenges above the stages were added in. Along with this, for all 3 of the boss gates in the hub world, to enter them and progress, you need to have 3 boss keys. These boss keys are again above the zones in the hub world next to the challenge gates. Basically, complete a challenge and you unlock that boss key. Do this 3 times and you unlock the boss gate, and therefore the boss. This is done 3 times for each boss gate. Now this is admittedly a pretty cheap way to pad out the game's length. However, since the source stages these challenges are based off are so strong in my opinion, Generations gets away with it. The challenges range from okay to pretty fun, and the best thing is there are loads to pick from, but you will only need to complete 3 for each boss gate, so you can literally just find a challenge that you will particularly like and choose to do that one. That is excellent game design. It eliminates the problem of doing challenges you don't like, because it's up to you on which one you want to do. Also, the huge amount of challenges add a lot of replayability to the game, as if that's your kind of thing, you can revisit the game and take on the different challenges in all your favourite stages. I honestly cannot stress how solid the gameplay aspect of Generations really is. Sonic Team really did hit it out of the park and fine-tuned everything to be as fun and energetic as possible. There are notable issues with Generations, like its short length and bland story, but why do you think you never really see people continually criticise the game for that? Because what is there of the gameplay is just that good. Sonic Forces is a game that also had a bland story and short length, and people constantly rip into the game for that reason. Why? Because the gameplay wasn't exceptional like Generations and couldn't take people's focus away from the story and length, since the gameplay was just borderline fine. But analysing Sonic Generations gameplay has made me realise just how fresh it felt in 2011 and how it really has had an impact on the Sonic community, so I've got a few of my friends here to chime in on their thoughts of Sonic Generations.
Sonic Generations is a game that I love, but haven't really experienced to the full extent. Since I am such a big Sonic fan, I play the game over and over again on consoles. I have never actually experienced the definitive version of playing gens on the PC, with mods and projects all lovingly made by the fans. This is honestly something I want to play again sometime, and I'm sure when lockdown is over, me and Lemon will be doing just that, but that doesn't mean I love the game to bits any less. Although in my eyes, it doesn't stack up to the scope and definitely storytelling of Unleashed, Sonic Generations is basically an evolution of the gameplay that I love so much in that game, that being the boost formula. The drift actually works, you don't have to unlock abilities and they are rather learnt in later levels, and the level design itself is amazing. But that's only talking about one half of the game. Although he has become a thorn in every Sonic fan's side in the recent years, seeing classic Sonic here was fresh and cool. The only time Sonic Team had done something like this previously was with What We Don't Speak Of. And this was still a few years from us receiving the second coming of Christ for Sonic fans, that is, Sonic Mania. The gameplay is good, and I do enjoy how OP classic Sonic Spin Dash is, but the fact that his levels feel so rigid with the loss of his momentum, something that made the classics so satisfying to play, definitely dampers the experience in my opinion. Whenever I'm coming back to this game, it's strictly to replay the modern stages and get that rush of adrenaline that is unique to playing a good Boost Sonic game. Looking at you, Forces, just because you can basically fly in a few levels with Sonic's boost doesn't make you any more fun. Fuck Forces. At the end of the day, Sonic Generations is an amazing experience and a great game in my eyes. Sure, the story isn't really up to snuff, and the game could have been maybe a smidge longer, but what we were left with is a fun and exhilarating experience that I've been playing since I was 9 years old. Anyway, thank you to Lemon for letting me on for a little section. I was actually also in his Unleashed video, so if you haven't watched that, then I implore you to go check it out. It's an amazing video like he always makes. And yeah, that's been me.
Hello everyone, it's me RickNick, and when Lemon asked me to come on here and talk about Sonic Generations, I was struggling to find what to say. I mean, I loved the game when growing up, and I had nothing to say that hasn't already been said by countless other YouTubers. But when replaying the game, I had an epiphany. Modern Sonic is great, but classic Sonic sucks in terms of gameplay. The reason modern Sonic works so well in Generations is because the boost formula had been at its peak when the game was released, due to the other games before it that laid out the groundwork for the boost success, like Unleashed on Colors. As well as this, the majority of levels you play through originally had the intentions of 3D gameplay in mind. Classic Sonic, on the other hand, had none of these advantages. This was the first time he was implemented into a semi-3D environment, and most of the levels actually worked against him, and his gameplay rarely suffered from that. For example, his jump is too short for my liking, the level designs rely a bit too much on pitfalls, there's no sense of momentum at all, just try and roll down this slope to see what I mean. There are some odd choices in animation also, like how he curls into a ball for rail grinding. And finally, his spin dash is super overpowered, like what? Just holding the X button or square for a few seconds and jumping can send you past whole sections of a level. And don't get me wrong, it's super fun to use at first, but the novelty wears off real quick. It's like if you started up Sonic 3 and Knuckles as Hypersonic. It sounds cool, but without the challenge of platforming and enemies, there's not really a lot to enjoy. The same applies with Classic Sonic and Generations. So yeah, Classic Sonic sucks in terms of gameplay. However, I still immensely enjoyed playing as him throughout the game, maybe even more than Modern Sonic, and that's because of one reason: the set pieces. If it's the collapsing bridges of Crisis City, or the gun truck tearing up some scaffolding you're climbing, the classic Sonic stages excel in spectacle and charm. And to make the set pieces even better, your camera might pan from a 2D perspective to a more dynamic angle, which adds a lot to the atmosphere as a whole. I will also say that the modern levels don't nearly compare to the visual awe that the classic stages bring, as the set pieces in modern stages have already been established in other games, for the most part, therefore making the modern set pieces just seem like a callback rather than its own experience. This is why I love Sonic Generations so frickin' much. It's the perfect mix of cool visuals and fun gameplay, because the two different styles pick up the slack for whatever the other fails to do. Okay, I'll shut up about chubby Sonic and lanky Sonic now, and I'll let you watch the rest of the video.
I love Sonic Generations. Is this statement very biased because it's actually my first 3D Sonic game and the first Sonic game that I ever actually beat? Yes. But it actually still holds up. Because it was my first 3D Sonic game, I know that this game holds up besides nostalgia, because the only levels that I knew about that I've actually played were Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Planet Wisp, and that was just the DS version. People talk about, oh yeah, the story is kind of weak and non-existent, but as someone who does not care about story in video games, which I mean by that is if the story is bad, it doesn't detract from a game, but if a story is good, it can add to a game. I don't care! It really is the best Sonic game of all time. I still learn new things about the game to this day. I just recently learned like a month ago that there was a secret pathway in Seaside Hill. I still try to refine my times, get better. It's the first Sonic game that I ever 100%ed, and I have not stopped playing it for the past 10 years. Sonic Generation has one of my favorite levels in the entire series, Modern Seaside Hill. It has some of the best level design that the Sonic franchise has ever seen since Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and it's pure, fast-paced platforming action. Even the low point of Planet Wisp isn't even bad, it's just not great. And it doesn't matter, it's one level. This game also has some of the best boss fights and rival battles in the entire series. Metal Sonic, Shadow, Silver, all of them are better than their original fights in their own respective games. The Death Egg Robot is a fun fight, if a bit easy, but Perfect Chaos and Egg Dragoon are amazing boss battles that are everything that a Sonic boss should be. I hate boss battles, and I love the boss battles in Generations so much that I even went back and played the hard mode versions, because the hard mode versions are even more fun than the normal versions. God, this game is so good! And then the PC version, it's beautiful with that 60 FPS 1080p. Ooh, oh, it's so good. And the mods, you can't forget about the mods. You get to play Unleashed in 1080p 60 FPS. And if you go like, oh, the lighting in Unleashed was better, dude, there are mods to fix the lighting to make it more like Sonic Unleashed. Do you need a powerful enough PC to do that? Yes, but it still works. Sonic Generations is probably the Sonic game that I've actually sunk in the most amount of time into over the past 10 years. And it's probably the reason I'm a fan of the games today. Yeah, I played a bit of Sonic Rush, I played Sonic the Hedgehog on the Dig, I played Sonic Colors DS, and I even had the Classic Collection as a kid for the DS, but I don't think I would be a big Sonic fan if it wasn't for Generations. And the fact that 10 years later, it's still completely relevant to me, and still one of my favorite games of all time, and the game that I judge other games to. It's like, oh yeah, this is cool, but I wish this was more like this from Sonic Generations. Oh, but this is cool, but you know, if it just had this from Sonic Generations. A game like that only comes around once. Everyone has that one game that they judge other games by, and that's Sonic Generations for me. Too bad the guy who made it now works at Nintendo, but hey, still a great game. Even though you guys might be sick of me of appearing in his videos, I thank Lemon for inviting me to talk about one of my favorite games.
Huge thank you to all of you guys for featuring in the video, it really does mean a lot. Make sure to check out everyone that was featured, they all make great content. There'll be links in the description to their channels along with the card in the top right corner now to take you there as well. Also, while I've got you here, if you're enjoying the video so far, maybe consider subscribing. I am painfully close to 1k and it really helps out the channel. If I hit 1k, I've got big plans like a second channel called Lemonade and a Lemon Discord server, so it would be great if I could hit that milestone soon. Okay, enough e-begging, on to the next section. Graphics and music. Now, as said before, Sonic Team are now back on the more powerful Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, so by that logic, this game should look at least on par with Sonic Unleashed beautiful visuals. Well, not exactly. Okay, so I'll start off by saying that Sonic Generations isn't a bad looking game at all. It's pretty nice for a 7th gen game, and in certain sections can still look stunning. However, my point is, this game does not look as good as Sonic Unleashed, and by a fair bit to be honest, but there is a reason for this. Now, Unleashed, as much as I adore that game, we've got to be honest here, those breathtaking visuals came at a cost. The frame rate. The poor Xbox 360 and PS3 could just not handle the graphics this game was pushing. Yeah. So when it came time for Sonic Team to work on Generations, they made the decision to actually tone down the Hedgehog engine and decrease the graphical fidelity in favour of a more consistent frame rate. It results in console Generations sticking to its 30 FPS goal a lot more consistently. Bear in mind the game still dips, but it's nowhere near as apparent as Unleashed. Now for me, who's playing on PC, this isn't an issue as my game's locked at 60 FPS and doesn't dip once. I also benefit from much sharper graphics compared to the console version with a full 1080p screen resolution, but in terms of graphics it can be disappointing to some that the follow-up to Unleashed that is back on the same consoles is actually worse looking, but personally for me it's not a big issue. Yeah, the game does look notably worse, but it's nowhere near bad, it's still a very good looking game, it's just best to enjoy it for what it is and not compare it to Unleashed. I will say the game does kind of make up for the slightly toned down graphics, not only with the aforementioned more stable frame rate, but the excellent theming that takes inspiration from the whole of Sonic's career up to that point. It truly is spectacular to see all these iconic places like Sky Sanctuary, City Escape, Speed Highway, Seaside Hill, Crisis City and more, all remade in the new modern graphical style. So graphics are still solid in my book. If you're really after the sharpest visuals, there is a fair bit of improvements with the PC version, but both console versions are fine ways to play the game as well. Now the other aspect of this game is what it truly excels at, the music. The music in Sonic Generations is exceptional, as the game is borrowing from different eras and themes of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. It also borrows musical styles and influences from all the different eras. Each zone is filled with excellent remixes for the levels in both the classic and modern style. The classic Sonic music perfectly encapsulates that retro Genesis feel mixed with modern clarity. It works perfectly. In Sonic 4 they tried to literally recreate the sound of the Mega Drive and it didn't work at all, it was just weird. But in Generations, the soundtrack just takes inspiration from the classic game soundtrack and applies that into new songs in a more modern and fitting way. Some standouts are the poppy energetic Rooftop Run theme, and the Crisis City theme with the big crunch guitar. Modern remixes are great as well. They're a bit more experimental and they're really catchy. There's remixes of iconic music like Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Speed Highway and City Escape. City Escape is also notable for bringing back the original guys who sung the SA2 City Escape to sing for the new theme. There's also the boss fights for the Death Egg, Perfect Chaos and the Egg Dragoon. They all have excellent music that just goes hand in hand with the fights. However, the music in Generations just goes above and beyond with the unlockable tracks you get from completing challenges. These are iconic Sonic songs spanning from the original Mega Drive days to the then most recent game Sonic Colors. This is a heavy incentive to try all the challenges and really adds replayability to the game. However, Sonic Team taking this even further. All of the songs you unlock are available to you when selecting the stage to change the music of that level. This is just fucking great. You can play your favourite Sonic tunes to any level in the game. Again, really pushing replayability for this game, which does help to make up for the short length. So music hits it out of the fucking park in this game. Due to the nature of the game literally being a run through the different places Sonic has been, it produces one of the most diverse Sonic soundtracks there is.
You're not in a position to demand anything, you nasty little pincushion.
Eggman! But how?
Okay, so ending time. If you've watched my videos before, you know the drill. I'm going to be spoiling Generations fully here, so if you don't want to see that, skip to this timestamp on screen now to avoid spoilers. Right, let's get into it. Okay, so in a cutscene, we discover from a Time Eater encounter that its weakness is Chaos Emeralds. What a shock. So we know we need to collect all 7 to take him on. After you finish the last boss from the final boss gate, the Egg Dragoon, and have all Chaos Emeralds, you head to the Time Eater stage entrance and go in. When confronting the Time Eater, the Sonics discover that it's being controlled by both classic and modern Eggman. Again, what a surprise. Modern Eggman explains after his defeat in Colors when drifting through space, he discovered the Time Eater and found a way to use it to erase his past mistakes and defeat Sonic. However, he needed someone else to help him, and the only person smart enough was him, so he enlists the help of classic Eggman. Together they use the Time Eater to tear through time and space, rewriting history. So the big shock tries to be quite tense and dramatic here, but it just kind of fails. The big surprise Eggman was behind the whole thing could have been seen from a mile off, and it's not written in any way to showcase any real tension. However, I will say it's charming to see Eggman has teamed up with classic Eggman and they're working together. I wouldn't say it makes him any more intimidating, but it's a pretty cool inclusion. Anyway, the two Sonics head straight for him and then just get crushed. It then seems like Eggman's got them, but then all of Sonic's friends come out of nowhere, appear, give him some verbal encouragement, and the two Sonics regain consciousness and turn supersonic. Fight begin. Yeah, again, this is pretty pathetic. No real tension or build up or sense of danger or any emotion really is at play here. It literally feels like the writers are checking off a list of what to do for a final Sonic boss. Have them nearly die? Check. Gain motivation? Check. Turn supersonic? Check. It's very disappointing, especially coming off the back of Unleashed in Colors. Colors still managed to have an extremely tense and investing ending despite having a lighter story to Unleashed. An Unleashed ending was just fucking beautiful. It did everything so right in my opinion. So to then get this, it really is disappointing. Unfortunately, the actual boss fight doesn't fare any better in my opinion. It is not great at all. In fact, it's my least favourite final boss fight out of every Sonic game. While the Time Eater's design is very interesting and menacing, and so is the area you fight him in, the fight is just so bland. For starters, it's not challenging at all. You just boost forward to get close enough to hit his weak spot and dodge his pathetic attacks. His attacks are shocking, they are incredibly easy to dodge, there is literally no challenge there. The only challenge comes from ensuring you don't run out of rings, which can be hard as the rings blend into the background and it's hard to spot them sometimes. So the only deaths I've ever had from this fight is from not having enough rings. In the fight you switch between classic and modern Sonic at any time with Y. However, the gameplay is essentially the same. In 3D, boost towards a time meter, and in 2D, boost towards a time meter. There really is no difference. Anyway, hit his core enough times and that's it. Destroyed. Eggman loses and Sonic and all his friends, including classic Sonic and Tails, are sent back to Sonic's birthday party at the beginning of the game. Classic Sonic and Tails portal opens up, the guys bid their farewells, and that's it. Credits. Yeah, I'ma be real with you, the ending for this game fucking sucks. I mean, it's not insulting, I guess the story is resolved, but it's just lifeless. There's no emotion in the cutscenes, no tension, no shock, and the actual fight is a real letdown for a game where the gameplay has consistently knocked it out of the park. I did say earlier in the video that the story of this game really isn't the game's strong suit, and the final boss is a big representation of that. I will say that there's a charming post-credit scene of the two Eggman trying to find their way out of the empty void they're stuck in, and it's pretty amusing. But yeah, the ending of the game is disappointing, and for me, just serves as a reminder of how weak this game's plot really is. It is a good job the gameplay of the rest of the game is as strong as it is, as it really minimises the damage this weak conclusion does in my opinion. Now typically in my videos this would now be my conclusion section where I round up everything and give my final conclusion on the game, but I feel like I owe Sonic Generations and the Sonic modding community a section about the Generations modding scene in this video. As mentioned before, I played the PC version of Sonic Generations for the most part. Now this isn't really for the better graphics and 60 FPS. Yeah, they're all nice bonuses, but for me what really drew me to Generations on PC was the mod support. I have 300 plus hours with this game on Steam, and the overwhelming amount of those hours are not achieved through playing the base game. Sonic Generations in my opinion has the best mod support of any Sonic game, and by far any 3D Sonic game. The title has been receiving steady mod support since its release, and now in 2021 there is a huge catalogue of mods to choose from. Some of the stuff people have made for this game is truly exceptional and can really highlight how good the boost gameplay can be. Now I really can't list all my favourite mods and talk about them in detail, there's just too many, and Christ knows this video is long enough as it is, but I'll briefly mention a few of my favourites. Water Palace stage mod. This is a reimagining of the Sonic Rush Water Palace stage in the 3D boost formula. It's fucking great. Splash Hill Zone. This is a reimagining of the Sonic 4 level and it's really fun. Grand Metropolis. A great reimagining of the Heroes stage that is large in scope and one of the longer stages. The 06 project. This is a full conversion of Generations that aims to bring the whole of Sonic 06 to Generations. Cutscenes, boss fights, character models, hub worlds and all. From what I can tell, the mod was never finished. The last version we got was demo 3.5, but the majority of 06 have been ported over and it's extremely impressive. And my number one recommendation has to go to the Unleashed project. Of course I would say this mod, but in my opinion it really is amazing and a must download for anyone with Generations on PC. This is a total conversion mod that converts every main stage of Sonic Unleashed into Generations. It is beautiful and the closest we have to an Unleashed PC port. The graphics have all been enhanced, higher resolution textures, better lighting. It by far beats the original Unleashed on console, and the game is also playable at a locked 60 FPS, assuming you have the hardware to handle it. You can blast through these iconic Unleashed stages that you're so used to running like piss at 15 FPS, with better graphics, no medal collecting, and with the new improved Sonic Generations controls, like the fixed drift and better homing attack. The Sonic Generations modding scene is amazing, and crazily still growing to this day. It is something that anyone with Generations on PC must check out. It is definitely worth it, and honestly, buying Generations on PC is worth it alone for the mods.
Still warm. Time travel.
Replaying Generations for this video has really made me realise how much of the core game Sonic Team absolutely nailed. The level design, the controls, the theming, the diverse locations, the graphics and music, and the overall game was just an excellent celebration of what makes Sonic so great in the first place. After Sonic's last anniversary title Sonic 06, Generations was truly a love letter to fans and the game we deserved. It showed Sonic Team's competence and that there is raw talent in that studio when they apply themselves. The game is unfortunately dragged down by the god-awful writers with the incredibly weak story, and the final boss just plain sucks in my opinion, but everything else that is here is just so fucking good. Sonic Generations made waves when it released back in 2011 with both fans and mainstream critics, and I am happy to say that the game is just as solid now as it was back then 10 years ago. In fact, I would argue the game is now more enticing than ever after seeing how Sonic Team butchered the boost formula with forces, and the modding scene for the game being bigger than ever. While honestly one of my worst games for how a Sonic story should be done, overall Sonic Generations is definitely one of the best Sonic games out there and deserves a playthrough, even 10 years later.